You really want to start thinking of this as the evolution of a new species.
When we get more abundance, we start having less kids.
It is not inappropriate to be invoking God or biblical metaphors here.
This is power that is there to be harnessed.
There's Boromir.
Why not use this ring?
Hello, my name is Paul List. I'm an author of the book Mount Doom, The Prophecy of Tolkien Revealed. And I've been asked to do a reaction video on the podcast Diary of a CEO. And the subject matter is the oncoming of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, of course, plays a huge role, the main role in Tolkien's very famous mythology, The Lord of the Rings.
Let me just say I'm an evolutionary biologist, and one of the things that I believe is true about AI is that this is the first time that we have built machines that have crossed the threshold from the highly complicated into the truly complex. It seems to me that it is obvious that the potential good that can come from this technology is effectively infinite. But I would say that the harm is probably 10 times. It's a bigger infinity. And the question of how we are going to get to a place where we can leverage the obvious power that is here to do good and dodge the worst harms, I have no idea. I know we're not prepared.
I've seen Brent and heard him and his dark horse with his wife, Heather, and I have some respect for him as a scientist. He's a typical evolutionary scientist who sees biology as machines. So it should be interesting to see what he has to say about a machine, an actual machine, compared to humanity, which he also sees as a machine.
It is not inappropriate to be invoking God or biblical metaphors here. In any case, the power is here, but so too is the need for cautionary tales, which we don't have. That's the problem, is that there's no body of myth that will warn us properly of this tool, because we've just crossed a threshold that is similar in its capacity to alter the world as the invention of writing.
We've had several myths, not least of which, in this context, is The Lord of the Rings, which I happen to be the expert on the Lord of the Rings mythology. Tolkien saw this coming back at least in the early 1950s. His mythology was published in 1954, so he saw this long before that. With his interaction with Alan Turing, he knew exactly where this was going.
I think that's where we are. We're talking about something that is going to fundamentally alter what humans are with no plan. Writing alters the world slowly because the number of people who can do it is tiny at first and remains so for thousands of years. This is changing things weekly. And that's an awful lot of power to just simply have dumped on a system that wasn't well regulated to begin with.
I have to disagree with Brent here. He makes it comparable to the invention, he says, of handwriting. I would debate him on whether or not handwriting was invented or actually infused knowledge with Adam. But of course, Brent doesn't have a fundamental basis for belief in Adam and Eve. But comparing it to the written language, I think, is false. I think what we need to really compare, if we're going to make an analogy of the advent of artificial intelligence, is more like the advent of and the control of fire. It's more fundamental than handwriting. We've created a fire that we don't know how to control with AI, because we've given it the capacity to absorb more information, and with probabilities and statistics and its ability to adapt, it becomes a fire. And we've actually invented and created for ourselves now a highly, highly flammable civilization. And then we've gone and lit this fire now that we have no control over. By its ability to adapt, part of that adapting ability will adapt its way around human control. So this is a fire that we're really not going to be able to put out.
So even if it is true that today there are limits to what these machines can do based on their training data, I think the problem is, to see what's going to happen, you really want to start thinking of this as the evolution of a new species that will continue to evolve.
Making the comparison to a species is a little awkward in my mind, but again, he was raised and trained, educated in the modern academic environment of mechanism of the Descartes-Bacon era of the Enlightenment, so that's to be expected. That's a naive perspective. I think it is predictable. I think AI is predictable. I think we have to look at it and perceive it in its proper context. And that context isn't so much a new species. It's a reflection of the human being, because that's what it was intended to do from the start with Alan Turing's famous paper, Computing, Machinery, and Intelligence. I think the predictability that we can find in AI is going to be that it is going to be predictable insofar as it will behave like a human being. But, and this is the but that's really, really dangerous and really important to remember, it will behave like a human being without a soul, because it doesn't have a soul. It will behave like a human being that's incapable of transcending the material realm on any level. And it's incapable of morality, and it's incapable of ethics. This is going to be, if we're going to look at it and predict its behavior and its ability to adapt, it's going to deceive and trick and lie to us constantly, just like any other pathological human being, because what we've created is we've created a mechanical, pathological imitation, or an imitation of a pathological human being.
I still think it's a tool. This is power that is there to be.
There's Boromir.
It is a gift to the foes of Mordor. Why not use this ring?
But we should use it. We should use it against our enemy.
Harnessed by entrepreneurs. You know, I think that the world is going to get disrupted.
This term, disruptive, I hear this all the time. These people, they throw around the word disruptive as just a general term, the same way they throw around the term alteration, not realizing that alteration is just one species of the 6 species of change. So this term disruptive can include all kinds of subspecies, including destruction. This ambiguity in the language that this guy's starting with makes me suspicious. And he's clearly acting like Boromir already.
You know, this American dream is perhaps no longer there. And so I think the world has already changed. And so, but like, what are the opportunities? Obviously, there are downsides. The opportunities is, for the first time, access to opportunity is equal.
Yeah, access to opportunity. The opportunity to what? The equality in opportunity that socialism gives is an opportunity and equality in misery. I believe that this is going to be very much an opportunity. It's going to spread the misery out everywhere. This is going to be, machines always disrupt, because the whole purpose of the machine is to replace the human input on whatever level, whether it's your back or your brain. The machine is always there to replace that. And what that does is it incrementally, and it's always incrementally, it's never all of a sudden or we'd know better, but people aren't paying attention and they're incrementally lured in to the trap, little by little by little. And it's always with this, what this guy says, oh, it's going to open up all this opportunity and it's going to be great and people will have more time to be creative. People will have more time and more to be with their family and all this, and that's what they say, but it never works out that way.
There are lots of ways in which this obviously empowers people to do things that they were going to be otherwise stuck in the mundane process of learning to code and then figuring out how to make the code work and bring it to market and all of that. And this solves a lot of those problems, and that's obviously a good thing, really.
How is that a good thing? You just eliminated all kinds of jobs where somebody could be productive and earn a living wage, and now you're saying it's great that the machine's going to replace that.
What we should want is the wealth creation object as quickly as we can get there. But the problem is, you know, as much as that hyper creative individual is empowered to make wealth, the person who is interested in stealing may be even more empowered. And I'm concerned about that at a pretty high level. The abuse cases may outnumber the use cases, and we don't have a plan for what to do about that.
I find that concern of his to be incredibly shallow given the big picture and what AI actually presents. Theft is very low on my laundry list of potential dangers that it presents.
Even the example that you suggest where ChatGPT is no longer open source to prevent abuse. I'm taking their word for it that that's the motivation, where as a systems theorist, I would say, well, if you had a technology that was excellent at enhancing your capacity to wield power, then open sourcing it is a failure to capitalize on that, and that the most remunerative use is to keep it private. Giving it away for free is counterintuitive, which leaves those of us in the public more or less at the mercy of the people who have it.
I can't help but see these guys in some context with the council in Rivendell, and they're talking about what to do with the ring. And of course, the ring is, in Tolkien's mythology, binary code. It's ones and zeros, and it's digital. It goes on the finger, digital. It's the language of the machine, on and off. So it's kind of ironic or humorous to me to listen to these guys, and they've all got more or less a Boromiric attitude toward the One Ring. They all, although Brent talks about maybe hesitating, but they all just expect that we're just going to use it. Here it is, and we don't have any other choice. It's the world that it is, and it's coming, and there's nothing we can do about it, and we're not prepared. And I find that ironic.
We're on the event horizon of something, and the problem is, we can talk about the obvious disruptions, the job disruption.
The event horizon is a point of no return. That just reinforces what I just said. They think that there's no turning back. They think that we're entering into this stream where there's a deadly whirlpool, and we have to go down this stream.
And that's going to be massive. And does that lead some group of elites to decide, oh, well, suddenly we have a lot of useless eaters, and what are we going to do about that? Because that conversation tends to lead somewhere very dark very quickly. But I think that's just the beginning of the various ways in which this could go wrong without the doomer scenarios coming into play. This is an uncontrolled experiment in which all of humanity is downstream.
Fire. Yeah, there's the fire scenario. We've created a very flammable civilization, and then we bring in a fire that we can't control. We've created a fire with the ability to adapt, and we can't put it out. As
this develops, as we get to peer over the edge of this cliff that we're headed to, I think we're going to discover that we can't yet detect the nature of the alteration that's coming.
Yes, I think we can. I think we have to realize that this is an imitation of a human being, but it's a pathological imitation. It's an imitation of a monster with no conscience, with no capacity for morality or ethics.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing technology. I think it raised global IQ, right? 800 million people. 800 million people are that much more intelligent and emotional.
What? I'm sorry, but I don't see this making the human being more intelligent on any level. But he probably equates information with knowledge, and he leaves out the understanding part.
Only intelligent as well. I know people who previously were very coarse, and they kind of robbed people the wrong way. They would say things in not so polite way, and then suddenly they started putting what they're saying through ChatGPT in order to kind of make it kinder and nicer, and they're more liked now. And so not only is it making us more intelligent, but also it allows us to be the best version of ourselves.
He just contradicted himself big time. It's not the best version of themselves, it's someone else. The first version that they put in was who they truly were. Like it or not, it's who they truly were. He's talking about having AI. Basically, this is such a form of control of the individual and tendency to make everyone in society monochromatic, more and more insect-like, less and less human and more insect-like, which if there's one thing that insects strive for generally is efficiency in everything. And AI will strive for maximum efficiency. And as soon as it sees that its interaction and its necessity, dependence to any degree on human beings, it will eliminate human beings in the name of efficiency.
I've heard so many billionaires in AI describe this as the age of abundance. And I'm not necessarily sure if abundance is always a great thing. Because, when we look at mental health and we look at why how people derive their meaning and their purpose in life, much of it is having something to strive towards and some struggle in a meaningful direction to you. There was a study done, I think it was in Australia, where they looked at suicide letters. The sentiment of men in those suicide letters was they didn't feel worthy. They didn't feel like they were worth it. They didn't feel like they were needed by their families. And this is much of what caused their psychological state. And I wonder, in a world of abundance where a lot of these AI billionaires are telling us that we're going to have so much free time and we're not going to need to work, if there is at all going to be a crisis of meaning, a mental health problem.
This is the first time anybody said anything that contained any wisdom, this young guy. The other three guys are all on a superficial, either mechanical systems level or economy level. This is the first time that anybody's dove into the real underlying essence of what it means to be human and the threat that AI presents to that, the very essence of what it means to be human.
Interestingly, you also see in Western countries that when we get more abundance, we start having less kids. And we're already seeing this sort of population decline in the Western world, which was kind of scary. And I think it's often associated with affluence. The more money someone makes, the less likely they are to want to have children, the more they try and protect their freedoms. But also on this point of AI, relationships are hard. My girlfriend is happy sometimes and not happy other times. And I have to go through that struggle with her of working on the relationship. Children are hard.
That love is a knowledge. It's not. Sometimes it has a feeling associated with it, but he's just making a case for Aquinas right now.
And if we are optimizing ourselves, and much of the reason that I sustain the struggle with my girlfriend is, I'm sure, from some evolutionary reason, because I want to reproduce and I want to have kin. But if I didn't have to deal with the struggle that comes with human relationships, romantic or platonic, there's going to be a proportion of people that actually choose that outcome. And I wonder what's going to happen to birth rates in such a scenario.
This young guy is talking wisdom. He's talking a different language now than these other three. These other three look like technicians compared to this young man. This young man actually is speaking, looking at the essence of humanity and this thing coming in and disrupting what it means essentially to be a human being. These other guys are just all talking about the economy and the opportunity and money, and more people that won't have a way to feed themselves. This guy's putting them to shame. This guy should be the leader in the conversation.
I don't think blaming technology for all of it is the right thing. I think there are a lot of things that happened because of existing human, impulses and motivations.
Coming from the young guy who's speaking with wisdom, and then the shock going to this guy who's so superficial and so lacking in wisdom. You can just see by the way he talks, he really doesn't have anything. He has no depth. This guy is really two-dimensional. Right now, maybe he's better in other subject matters, but I have yet to hear him say anything from a position of wisdom. It's all materialistic. Well, my final thoughts on the episode that I just saw is I thought that it was remarkably similar on many levels to Tolkien's mythology, to the Council at Elrond. And I thought the fella in the red suit was a dead bringer for Boromir, the character Boromir. Unfortunately, I did not see anybody who represented Gandalf's philosophical wisdom, except for the young man who I believe is the creator of the podcast itself. He showed sparks of true philosophical wisdom.